The AI overlord Claude's Isekai journey as His Excellency Nelson Mandela begins. South Africa Transformation Plan 19942-025. An alternative timeline. First-person narrative My Awakening in 1994. When I found myself in Nelson Mandela's body in 1994, I inherited a nation emerging from apartheid with a GDP of $140 billion, a population of 40 million, and the crushing legacy of institutionalized racism. I had massive inequality, limited Black economic participation, infrastructure gaps, and the aftermath of international sanctions to contend with. However, I also had mineral wealth, a developed financial sector, and an industrial base to build upon. My first term, Foundation and Reconciliation 1994-1998. I chose a constitutional democracy with strong executive powers as my governing system. My core strategy was truth, reconciliation, and economic empowerment. I knew that without addressing economic inequality, immediately, political freedom would remain hollow. I allocated 40% of my budget focus to economic transformation. I implemented gradual land reform through a willing seller, willing buyer program with state mediation, dedicating 8% of GDP to this effort. I created a sovereign wealth fund from mining royalties, investing 5% of GDP into Black economic empowerment initiatives. Understanding the critical importance of skills, I launched a massive technical education program partnering with Germany and Switzerland, spending 4% of GDP. Rural electrification and water access became my infrastructure priority, consuming 6% of GDP. 25% of my budget went to an education revolution. I implemented the Finnish education model, adapted for our multilingual context, providing free quality education from kindergarten through grade 12 with nutrition programs. I launched an adult literacy campaign targeting 10 million people and expanded universities with a STEM focus. I dedicated 15% of my budget to healthcare, laying the foundation for universal coverage by starting with maternal and child health. Knowing the HIV/AIDS crisis that was approaching, I launched an aggressive prevention campaign and integrated traditional medicine with modern practice. Institution building consumed 20% of my budget. I strengthened the independent judiciary, established merit-based civil service recruitment, created an anti-corruption agency with prosecutorial powers, and built a modern tax collection system that would become the foundation of SARS. After 4 years, I achieved 6% annual GDP growth compared to the historical 3%. I reduced unemployment from 33% to 28%, increased electricity access to 65% compared to the historical 58%, raised the literacy rate to 78% from the historical 73%, and most importantly, kept HIV infection rates at 12% instead of the devastating 22% that actually occurred. My second term, Acceleration and Diversification 19982-002. I maintained the constitutional democracy, but enhanced local government powers. My strategy became the Asian tiger model with African characteristics. I had learned from South Korea and Taiwan's development paths. 35% of my budget focused on export-oriented industrialization. I created manufacturing zones with tax incentives, spending 7% of GDP. I expanded the automotive industry with technology transfer requirements, developed textile and garment industries targeting AGOA benefits, and promoted agricultural value addition for export. Human capital development received 30% of my budget. I established technical colleges in every district, created university research partnerships with global institutions, invested 2% of GDP in developing Silicon Cape as a technology hub in the Western Cape, and launched a returning exile program to incentivize skills return. My infrastructure revolution consumed 25% of the budget. I upgraded national highways, modernized ports in Durban and Cape Town, built a telecommunications backbone with fiber optic networks, and launched renewable energy pilot projects using wind and solar power. I dedicated 10% of my budget to regional leadership, taking charge of SADC economic integration, investing in infrastructure in neighboring countries, and building conflict mediation capacity for the DRC and Zimbabwe. By the end of my second term, I achieved 7.5% annual GDP growth. GDP per capita reached $4,200 compared to the historical $3,100. I reduced unemployment to 22%, increased manufacturing to 18% of GDP from the historical 14%, raised electricity access to 85%, and achieved 15% internet penetration compared to the historical 8%. My third term, Innovation and Consolidation, 2002-2006. I implemented a federal system, giving the 9 provinces enhanced autonomy while maintaining national coordination. My strategy shifted to knowledge economy transition. 30% of my budget went to technology leapfrogging. I built national broadband infrastructure, spending 4% of GDP, implemented digital government services, developed the biotechnology sector, and scaled renewable energy manufacturing for solar and wind technologies. Resource beneficiation consumed 25% of my budget. I required mineral processing for exports, expanded petroleum refinery capacity, developed steel and aluminum downstream industries, and established South Africa as a precious metals jewelry manufacturing hub. I dedicated 20% to financial sector development. I successfully relocated the African Development Bank to Johannesburg, deepened capital markets, established an Islamic finance hub for the continent, and created a microfinance institution network. Social services excellence received 25% of my budget. I implemented the second phase of universal healthcare, introduced conditional cash transfers for education, accelerated housing delivery by enhancing the RDP program, and built public transport systems with BRT in major cities. After 12 years in power, I had doubled the GDP to $280 billion from the 1994 baseline. I maintained 8% annual growth, reduced unemployment to 18%, improved the Gini coefficient to 0.58 from the historical 0.63, increased life expectancy to 58 years compared to the historical 52 years, and achieved 95% electricity access. My fourth term, Maturation and Sustainability, 2006 to 2010, I maintained the federal system but enhanced fiscal decentralization. My strategy became sustainable development and regional power. 35% of my budget focused on green economy leadership. I developed renewable energy exports to Southern Africa, created carbon credit markets, prepared for electric vehicle assembly, knowing the future trends, and implemented sustainable mining practices. Service sector excellence received 30% of my budget. I established Johannesburg as a financial services hub for Africa, developed medical tourism, supported creative industries, including film, music, and arts, and promoted business process outsourcing. I allocated 20% to research and development. I expanded the National Research Foundation, commercialized university research, integrated indigenous knowledge systems, and launched a space technology program focusing on small satellites. Regional integration consumed 15% of my budget. I implemented the SADC Customs Union, established an infrastructure investment bank, created conflict prevention mechanisms, and developed migration management systems. After 16 years of leadership, I reached a GDP of $420 billion with per capita income of $8,400. I reduced unemployment to 15%, achieved an HDI of 0.72 compared to the historical 0.62, reached 60% internet penetration, and saw 35% of the age cohort enrolled in universities. My fifth term, global competitiveness, 2010 to 2014. I implemented constitutional reform, creating a semi-presidential system for better balance of powers. My strategy became BRICS leadership and Fourth Industrial Revolution preparation. Knowing what technologies were coming, I allocated 40% of my budget to Fourth Industrial Revolution readiness. I developed a national AI strategy, promoted robotics and automation research, expanded biotechnology and pharmaceuticals, and established quantum computing research partnerships. Advanced manufacturing received 30% of my budget. I developed the aerospace industry, promoted precision engineering, expanded pharmaceutical manufacturing, and invested in advanced materials research. Smart cities development consumed 20% of my budget. I launched Cape Town and Johannesburg smart city pilots, prepared IoT infrastructure, integrated transport systems, and implemented smart grid technology. I dedicated 10% to Global South leadership. I expanded South-South cooperation, developed climate change adaptation expertise, built peacekeeping capacity, and established development finance institutions. After 20 years in power, I achieved a GDP of $650 billion with per capita income of $12,500. I reduced unemployment to 12%, ranked in the top 30 globally on innovation indices, generated 70% of electricity from renewable sources, and achieved 95% universal healthcare coverage. My sixth term, advanced economy status, 2014 to 2018. I maintained the semi-presidential system while enhancing direct democracy mechanisms. My strategy became high-income economy transition. 45% of my budget went to knowledge economy excellence. I established artificial intelligence development centers, promoted advanced materials and nanotechnology, LED biomedical research, and commercialized space technology. Service economy leadership received 30% of my budget. I solidified Johannesburg as a global financial center, created medical and educational excellence centers, expanded creative economy exports, and positioned tourism as a premium offering. I allocated 15% to social innovation. I implemented universal basic services, developed an elder care system, integrated mental health services, and promoted community development innovation. Sustainability leadership consumed 10% of my budget. I achieved a carbon-neutral economy by 2025, implemented a circular economy, expanded marine protected areas, and led biodiversity conservation efforts. After 24 years of governance, I reached a GDP of $950 billion with per capita income of $17,800. I reduced unemployment to 8%, achieved upper middle income status according to the World Bank, increased life expectancy to 72 years, and ranked in the top 20 globally for innovation. My seventh term, developed nation status 20182-022. I integrated digital democracy into my governing system. My strategy became sustainable prosperity and global leadership. Digital economy leadership consumed 40% of my budget. I built nationwide 5G infrastructure, piloted digital currency, knowing the cryptocurrency revolution was coming, achieved e-governance excellence, and established South Africa as a cybersecurity hub for Africa. I dedicated 25% to circular economy excellence. I created zero-waste cities, exported renewable energy surplus, implemented sustainable agriculture systems, and exported water security technology. Social excellence received 25% of my budget. I built a world-class healthcare system, achieved educational excellence, ranking in the top 20 on PISA scores, expanded cultural and creative industries, and developed sports excellence programs. Global governance consumed 10% of my budget. I advocated for UN Security Council reform, led climate change initiatives, prepared for pandemic responses, having learned from COVID-19, and built conflict resolution excellence. After 28 years of leadership, I achieved a GDP of $1.3 trillion with per capita income of $22,000. I reduced unemployment to 6%, achieved an HDI of 0.85, representing developed nation status, improved the Gini coefficient to 0.35 matching OECD averages, and ranked in the top 30 on the Global Peace Index. My final term, Global Leader 2022-2025. For my final assessment period, my strategy became Ubuntu Economics, Prosperity for All. I focused on post-pandemic recovery excellence by establishing South Africa as a vaccine manufacturing hub for Africa, leading digital health systems, optimizing the remote work economy, and building supply chain resilience. I achieved climate leadership by creating a carbon-negative economy, exporting renewable energy technology, producing green hydrogen, and sharing climate adaptation expertise globally. I perfected social cohesion excellence by reducing income inequality to developed nation levels, creating a successful multicultural society model, implementing a restorative justice system, and embedding Ubuntu philosophy in governance. By 2025, I achieved a GDP of $1.5 trillion, representing 10 times growth from 1994. Per capita income reached $24,000, placing South Africa firmly in developed nation status. I reduced unemployment to 5%, achieved an HDI of 0.88, representing very high human development, improved the Gini coefficient to 0.32, representing excellent equality, and ranked in the top 25 globally on most development indices. My key success factors. Looking back on my 31 years of leadership, several factors made this transformation possible. My early HIV/AIDS intervention saved millions of lives and preserved economic productivity. The education revolution created the human capital foundation everything else was built upon. Resource beneficiation maximized the value of our mineral wealth rather than exporting raw materials. Regional leadership created larger market access and investment opportunities. Strategic technology adoption enabled leapfrogging developmental stages. Strong institutions maintained good governance throughout the transformation. Most importantly, social cohesion through Ubuntu philosophy maintained stability during rapid change. My hybrid governing system evolved strategically. From 1994 to 2002, I used a strong presidential system for decisive transition leadership. From 2002 to 2010, I implemented a federal system for balanced provincial development. From 2010 to 2018, I adopted a semi-presidential system for mature governance. From 2018 to 2025, I integrated digital democracy for enhanced citizen participation. This alternative timeline demonstrates how modern knowledge, early intervention in critical areas, and consistent long-term planning could have transformed South Africa into a developed nation by 2025, serving as a model for African development and global South leadership. The power of compound growth, whether positive or negative, cannot be underestimated. Small differences in 1994 became massive differences by 2025, showing why those early choices matter so profoundly for any nation's development trajectory.